Assassination rogues are, quite frankly, deadly assassins. I'm going to show you everything you need to know to succeed in The War Within Season 1 today, and it's going to be very beginner-friendly, while also giving you enough information as a veteran to hit the ground running. Starting off looking at our stat priority, we're just getting straight into it, we've got agility. That is our main stat. We want a higher and higher eye level or item level in order to get more agility and secondary stats. This here is the general stat priority for your secondary stats. However, I do want to say you should only be following this if you're comparing two items of the exact same eye level. And generally, just getting a higher and higher eye level is going to be the main focus. Looking at the secondary stats and what they do for us then, versatility, which is actually the same for every spec in WoW. It increases damage done, it increases healing done, and it reduces damage taken. Mastery, it's potent assassin, increases the damage done by any poisons and bleeds that you do. Haste is going to increase our attack speed and energy regeneration, energy being the main resource we're using to cast our abilities as an assassination rogue. Critical strike, of course, gives us a chance to do more damage. Before we move on, let's have a quick look at the set bonus we're getting on our gear this season. And if you don't know what any of this means, don't worry. I'll be explaining it in full shortly when we go through the abilities in rotation. For the 2 set then, when any of your bleeds deal damage, they have a chance to grant you Vile Tincture for 8 seconds, increasing your poison damage by 1% per stack, and that can stack up to 10 times. So basically, whenever our bleeds do damage, we're going to get a chance to increase our poison damage by 1%, and that can stack up and up and up. The 4 set, while you have 5 or more stacks of Vile Tincture, Garret, Rupture, and Crimson Tempest deal more damage. And that's pretty much that for the set bonus this season. So now we're going to look through the utilities and some of the defensives, etc. that we have available to us as a rogue in The War Within. I do want to say these are not all of them. These are the ones that I think are the most important and that you should know about. And once you're more comfortable with your specialization, or just with rogue in general, I would say to just go through the spellbook here and just see what you have available. The same will be with the talents for the rogue side of the talent tree as well, as that is going to be the same on all 3 specs. So, on the left then, we have first, of course, stealth. We as a rogue can go into stealth whenever we want outside of combat. There are a few abilities I'll be showing you in the rotation where we can do it in combat as well, but for now we're sticking to what we can do whenever the hell we want. Now, of course, enemies will not be able to see us when we are in stealth, and we can sneak past most of them. Another interesting ability we have is our kick. This is an interrupt, and a lot of interrupts in the game are actually sometimes called kick because of this spell. It's kind of become the de facto name for interrupts. This is going to interrupt any spellcasting that your enemy is doing, and it's very, very important in both PvP and Mythic Plus. Generally in raiding it's less important, or you'll be using it less, but it is still good to know about. We then have Crimson Vial. Drink an alchemical concoction that heals you for 20% of your maximum health over 4 seconds. This can be seen as a defensive cooldown. However, it is only on a 30-second cooldown. And then we have Cold Blood on a 45-second cooldown. So it's another mini cooldown, if you will. Increases your critical strike chance of your next damaging ability by 100%, meaning you're going to get a guaranteed crit on your next attack. Over on the right then, we've got Evasion, increasing your dodge chance by 100%, and that is on a 2-minute cooldown, so that's a defensive ability. We have Sprint, increasing your movement speed by 100% for 12 seconds. You can also use this while you are stealthed, and it's a really great way to get from A to B in certain fights. We've also then got, speaking of stealth, Cloak of Shadows. This basically provides a moment of magic immunity, instantly removing all harmful spell effects. The cloak lingers, causing you to resist harmful spells for 5 seconds. And lastly, Facility, restoring 100 of your energy. And your mastery is going to be increased by 13.6% for 6 seconds. So energy is the main resource that you can see I've got here as a rogue. And of course, our mastery we spoke about in the stat priority section. And you have got 3 charges of this. Now, like I said, there's loads of other utilities you've got as a rogue. We have things like Shroud of Concealment, where basically you can give your entire party stealth as long as they stay within the shroud. Kidney Shot, Feint, Blind, Cheap Shot, Distract, Sap, Shadow Step, Tricks of the Trade, Pickpocket, Picklock, Kidney Shot. These are all the utilities that you have available as a rogue, but as this is a beginner video, I'm not going to overwhelm you with what all of these do. These are the main ones that I would say you should know about. Really, you could argue that Shroud of Concealment is another one. That is another really fantastic one. If I do go into stealth, you can see your allies that are inside this huge circle will also be stealthed for the duration, and it is for 15 seconds. So that's a good way that your whole entire group can get past enemies undetected. But it is on a 6-minute cooldown, so you can't use it over and over in quick succession. So now for the actual main rotation, etc., we will be using. As a heads up, we are going with Deathstalker hero talents, and I'll be taking you through those in full shortly. Before you go into combat, the first thing you want to do is apply your poisons. I personally like Wound Poison as my favourite, and then I also put on Crippling Poison. Apart from that, it's probably a no-brainer that we want to go into stealth. Some of our abilities will be doing more damage if we are in stealth, and some of them will also actually need to be in stealth as well. So we've got a few ways to generate combo points and a few ways to spend our combo points that we're going to be using. Looking at the main abilities we want to be using, one of your best is Kidney Shot. It is on a 30-second cooldown, and it's a combo point finisher, and it's going to put a longer stun on the target for the more combo points you use, up to 8 seconds. We then can use Death Mark on a 2-minute cooldown, carving a death mark into your enemy, dealing a massive amount of bleed damage over 16 seconds. While marked, your Garrot, Rupture, and lethal poisons applied are duplicated, dealing 100% of normal damage. And this is a really great way that we can burst on our enemy. Now, if you're not sure what Garrot and Rupture is, it's these two abilities here. Garrot the enemy, causing a bleed damage over 18 seconds, and silences the target for 6 seconds when used from stealth. And we do want to be using as many abilities we can as in stealth as possible. This is going to award 1 combo point, whereas Rupture is going to add a bleed to the target. And we want to keep this up as much as possible, doing more damage over a longer period of time for the more combo points used. Another amazing ability we have is Shiv. Attack with your poison blades, dealing physical damage, dispelling all enrage effects, and applying a concentrated form of your crippling poison, reducing movement speed by 84% for 5 seconds. So as well as doing damage and generating combo points, Shiv is actually amazing at slowing your enemy. Your nature and bleed damage done to the target is also increased by 30% for 8 seconds. So things like Rupture and Garrot, where we're putting bleeds on them, that damage is also going to be increased after we use Shiv. Your kind of filler combo point generator is going to be Mutilate. Attack with both weapons, dealing physical damage, and awards 2 combo points. And then the kind of filler, if you will, or the one we're going to be using a lot, Finisher will then be Envenom. Finishing move that drives your poison blades in deep, dealing instant nature damage and increasing poison application chance by 30% damage and duration per increased combo point. So the more we put on there, the more duration, the more damage our poisons are going to do. And that really is like the main few abilities we're going to be kind of using for combo point generation and finishers. It really is actually fairly simple. A few other abilities we can use that are really useful, especially from stealth, are going to be Sap and also Cheap Shot. We can use Vanish to go into stealth in combat, allows you to vanish from sight, entering stealth while in combat. For the first 3 seconds after vanishing, damage and harmful effects received won't break stealth at all. Then we can use something like Sap, which requires 35 energy, incapacitates the target, not in combat for 1 minute, only works on humanoids, etc. And you can use this as an opener when you go into battle. Then we've got Cheap Shot. It's going to award a combo point and stuns the target for 4 seconds, which is amazing. You can use that from stealth, where it does require stealth. And then our Garrot as well is going to be doing more in stealth as well. We also have another finisher that we can use, which you want to keep up as much as possible, and that is Slice and Dice here. This is simply going to increase your attack speed massively, depending on how many combo points you use of it. So you can speed up how often you attack. And another combo point generator, if you aren't looking at using cheap shot from stealth, is ambush. Ambush the target, causing physical damage and awarding 2 combo points as well. And this can be a really useful one to use. Now looking at the sort of the more utilities we have, we've got Thistle Tea, which will restore 100 energy and increase your mastery and has free charges. So you can use this quite often. Even though it's on a minute cooldown, it does have free charges. We've got Kick, which is your general interrupt to interrupt their spellcasting. Cloak of Shadows is an amazing ability, provides a moment of a magic immunity, instantly removing all harmful spell effects and causes you to resist harmful spells for 7 seconds. Evasion increases your dodge chance by 100%. Feint is another amazing spell, performs an evasive maneuver, reducing damage taken from any area of effect attacks. So if they do use AoE on you, use your Feint. And lastly, Crimson Vial. Drink an alchemical concoction that heals you for 25% of your maximum health for 4 seconds. And that is pretty much it. It is definitely the simplest of the 3 rogue specializations for PvP, in my opinion. The other specs do have a little bit more going on, but maybe if you're new to it, etc., this is probably a great intro one, as there is not as many buttons or a million things to do to set up your burst phase, etc. So in this build, we are going with the Deathstalker hero talents. These are already all worked into the rotation I've shown you, of course, but I do just want to go over them. Hero talents are the new hot thing. You know, let's talk about what they have, etc., and what they do, because they are really interesting. If you are a beginner, again, I would say don't, worry if you are getting a bit overwhelmed by some of these. Again, it is already in the rotation, but again, it is important to know. I feel like I've just contradicted myself, but hopefully you know what I mean. So ambush from stealth is going to apply 3 stacks of Deathstalker's Mark to your target. When you spend 5 or more combo points on attacks against a marked target, you consume an application of Deathstalker's Mark, dealing a load of plague damage and increasing the damage of your next ambush or mutilate by 40%. And you may only have 1 marked target at a time. Going down the left then, your next Fan of Knives, after applying Deathstalker's Mark, deals an additional amount of plague damage and generates an additional 1 combo point. Fatal Intent, your damaging abilities against enemies above 20% health, have a really high chance to actually apply Fatal Intent. When an enemy falls below 20% health, Fatal Intent inflicts plague damage per stack. So, got our first utility choice. I like to go for Bait and Switch. Evasion reduces magical damage and Cloak of Shadows reduces physical damage. Kind of covers us for everything there, rather than just Cloak of Shadows' duration being increased. Hunt Them Down. Auto attacks against marked targets deal more damage. Corrupt the Blood. Rupture deals an additional amount of damage each time as it does damage. Each time it does damage, it does more damage than it did before, and that can stack up to 10 times. And then here, I like to go for Follow the Blood. You can also go for Momentum of Despair. Fan of Knives and Black Powder deal 25% additional damage, while 3 or more enemies are afflicted with Rupture. Single target, you can go for Momentum of Despair. If you have critically struck with Fan of Knives, increase critical strike chance of Fan of Knives and Black Powder by 15% and critical strike damage by 24% for 12 seconds. So it really depends kind of what you're up against and the nuances of the fight and how many enemies you are fighting, in my opinion, for that one. Singular Focus, damage dealt to targets other than your marked target, deals 5% plague damage to your marked target, so putting damage from others onto the marked one. Symbolic Victory, Shiv additionally increases the damage of your next Envenom. After Death Mark expires, gain 20% increased nature damage. And then we've got Shroud of the Night, where basically you're increasing the duration of your Shroud of Concealment, which I think is really, really nice. It doesn't last that long. Shade Walker, each time you consume a stack of Deathstalker's Mark, reduce the cooldown of Shadow Step. Up to you on that one. I just love the cooldown reduction, the duration increase on Shroud of Concealment to make it last longer. I really do love that. Darkest Night is the final one. When you consume the final Deathstalker's Mark from a target or the target dies, you're actually going to gain 40 energy, and your next Envenom cast with maximum combo points is guaranteed to critically hit, and it's going to deal additional 60% damage and apply 3 stacks of Deathstalker's Mark to the target, meaning that you can get those stacks back up really, really quickly, which is quite nice. Again, all of this is already into the rotation that I have shown you, so if you have, found any of this overwhelming, don't worry if you're a beginner, etc. But I think it's good as the hero talents are new to really have a more in-depth look at them. Now looking at the consumables and enchants, etc. we're using as a rogue, the first thing you may notice is that we now, from the weekly Great Vault, have a new way of getting gem sockets for our gear. We can add these with the Nerubian Gem Weaver on our head, waist, and wrist. It's not on this picture. And we can add 2 gem sockets to our neck and both rings now, rather than in the previous expansion where it was just 3 sockets on your neck. And that is with a magnificent jeweler's setting. So you can see 2 on the neck, 2 on the ring, and 2 on the other ring. We're going with Chant of Winged Grace on your cloak enchant, which gives avoidance and removes some fall damage. Crystalline Radiance gives agility. Armored Leech gives leech. Stormbound Armor Kit actually gives agility on the legs. Scout's March gives movement speed. I think it's 250. Mastery on the rings, and then Authority of the Depths on both of your weapons. Authority of the Depths basically means when you're damaging foes, you have a chance to do this big old dark, shadowy damage, and that can deepen, as they like to call it, on the tooltip, which I think that just means it can stack 3 times, which is pretty nice. Then looking at the actual consumables we're using, Alchemical Chaos is the best for DPS, but most people are probably going to go with Versatility for a more rounded out increase in survivability and damage. Alchemical Chaos will rotate your secondary stats. It'll add 7,000 to 1 secondary stat while taking off 600 of the other 2. But what's interesting, and that'll rotate for however long, Tempered Potion will actually add, when you use a potion, that will add to the secondary stats that you're not getting from your flask. So it's really interesting how that works. And it will still do the same thing if you use the Versatility one, just it won't give Versatility, it'll give the others. Healing Potion is called the Algari Healing Potion. Iron Claw Whetstone adds attack power. It's like 500 attack power for an hour on your weapon oil. If you're using an Augment Rune, it's called the Crystallized Augment Rune. And then we're using Culminating Blasphemites on our gems. An Onyx is generally going to be the best one, but you do want to use different coloured gems, apart from Amber, to get the most effect out of the Blasphemite. So basically, you can use a Ruby, Sapphire, an Emerald, and an Onyx. I think that's the right ones. And what it does is, so the Blasphemite gives primary stat, so agility, but it also gives 0.15% critical strike effect increase per different colored gem that you're wearing. Hence why you want to wear an onyx, a sapphire, a ruby, and an emerald, and then the rest of them you can use for whatever you want to get the full effect from your epic gem. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVUI, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.